Alright guys, so let's go ahead and do the final debugging practice here. So I'm gonna comment this out again. So this is what we actually fixed in the previous lesson. So I'm just gonna comment it and uncomment this part of this code. Alright, so I'm just gonna uncomment this real quick. So the problem here is actually something that doesn't immediately occur, but it occurs when we run the code or enter the values that it's asking. So if I actually clear this and run this, if you remember, this is actually another code that we built, that we wrote, I think, under like section 4 or something of the course. And again, what it does is that it checks, whether the year you enter is a leap year or not. All right. So again, if you remember, we talked about the formula and how it works. We gotta make sure if it's divided by 4, nothing comes out of it. Again, I don't want to get back to the formula of it, but this is the code we had. So if I run this code, one of the things that is gonna happen, it's gonna ask you for a year. So I'm gonna actually enter a leap year. In this case, I'm gonna put 2020. All right. So what is going to happen is that we're going to get an error here. And this is actually another error that's really cool, because PyCharm tells us exactly what is the problem here. And if you take a look, it says if year modulus 4 equals 0, it says that there is a problem here. And we get the type error. It says not all arguments converted during string formation. All right. So the type error is essentially when you're dividing something or multiply something or a couple of values that are just not the same type. For example, you can add a string to a string, right? That works. You can add a number or an integer to each other. You can add a float to a float, but you can't add, for example, a string into an integer, right? A number, because that doesn't make sense. I mean, how do you add apple to 14, for example? It doesn't make any sense, right? And this is the problem. It seems like this is the type error, not all arguments converted during the string formatting. So that's what we gotta fix. So the problem here is that, as see, it starts here. So this is what is pointing out, and this is where sometimes these errors can be a little bit misleading, because the error is actually appearing here, but it's actually not the problem. So if you actually pause it, I want you to think about what is causing this. So pause the video for a second and see, what do you think is causing this? All right. So hopefully you actually took some time to figure it out. But if you think about it, the only problem here is that the number we're entering, the input here, is not an integer. So because remember, by default, an input function is essentially a string, right? So it's essentially a string, and that's what it does. When you enter a value in there, it keeps it, saves it as a string. So that's basically what it is. So, and because what we're doing is that we're taking the string, this year is a string, and we're just putting it in, dividing it, trying to divide it by 4 or something. And it just doesn't make any sense, right? Because again, we're dividing a string by an integer, so that doesn't make any sense. So we want to turn this into an integer. So I'm gonna go and make this an integer, so just like that, and add the integer. There you go. So now this should actually fix this. So if I say, save this and run it, so let's say put 2020, and there you go. So that's a leap year. And the reason I put 2020 is because 2020 was a leap year. So that's something for us to test. Anyways, so that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Nothing else really to fix, and that was the whole problem. So let me know if you have any questions, guys. If not, I'll see you in the next one.